Let's call this meeting to order. Staff roll call.
Attendance noted, and Mr. Chair, we're going to have to appoint a acting secretary for tonight's meeting.
Okay, very good. Do we have a person who would volunteer for that? How about you, Josh?
Sure.
Thank you very much. That'd be Josh. Okay, next item on the agenda, approval of the minutes for the regular Planning Commission meeting of February 24th.
So moved. Second.
Okay, motion and second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, any opposed? Carries. Thank you. Okay, and opportunity for anyone in the audience that needs to talk to us about something that's not on the agenda. Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to the first item. First item is a public hearing on amended plan unit development for Richfield Bloomington Honda, 501 77th Street West. Amendment will allow additional parking on the roof of the Honda building, minor site changes, and changes to the exterior. Staff?
Thank you, Chair Jabs. As you'll all remember, last summer the City Council approved redevelopment plans for the Richfield, Bloomington, Honda, and Mitsubishi campuses along 494. The Mitsubishi building is under construction now if you haven't driven by recently, and construction of Honda is expected to begin late this spring or early summer. In the course of preparing final building plans, the project has undergone a revision that is mathematically large enough to require council approval of an amendment. While the physical changes to the site are mathematically, would mathematically put this in the category of a major amendment, staff would actually classify these as fairly minor in terms of their impact. The revised Honda project will include the addition of parking on the entire roof of the Honda building. That will be over a 5% change in the number of parking spaces, which is why it's classified as a major amendment. However, the vehicles will be barely visible from the street. Included in your packet are some revised perspectives, and we can move to the overhead camera here and I can show those to you. Here is the plan for the parking on the roof. It's the addition of 143 spaces. This first one is the original elevations of the building. Here are the cars parked on the roof. And here are perspectives from the street. So you can see looking from 77th Street, looking from Harriet Avenue, which now actually is a private boulevard. You will not see those vehicles. The other change that comes with the addition of the parking on the roof is that the elevated showroom along the southern end of the building will now be 2 stories. That's the part of the building that projects out toward 494. That's a very unique element for Honda and something that will give it a greater presence on 494. These cars will be visible from the hotel, but they will, and while they will be service vehicles or vehicles in for service, it will not be body work. It's minor maintenance. Some additional minor changes to the building footprint have been made. It will decrease the front setback by approximately 6 feet, which actually brings it closer to compliance with district regulations, where we ask for those buildings to be pulled up as close to the street as possible. They'll also increase the interior square footage slightly along both the west and south sides of the building. The final change that I wanted to bring to your attention is a change in the building material. Previously, the majority of the building had been EIFS, and this change, I was just looking to see if we had a better perspective, but we do not. It will now be precast concrete. The finish will be the same, and if any of you had a chance to either go out to Luther Brookdale or look it up on Google Earth or something, you can see that material looks the same as all of the perspectives we've seen. This will allow for faster construction. I believe the Ohio contractors would like to avoid another Minnesota winter construction season. And they've worked with it before. It's the same contractor that installed it in Luther Brookdale. And also the architect and Richfield Bloomington Honda manager are here, and they have a sample of the building material if you'd like to see that. So I think that's about it in terms of the changes. We've detailed them a little bit further in your staff report. I've highlighted some of the changes to the findings that need to be made, but they're very minor, as you can see through the report. So I'd be happy to take any questions. Otherwise, that concludes our report.
Okay, any questions to staff? Okay.
Just one quick one.
Yep, okay.
The cars are elevated to the roof? Or is it a ramp?
There's a ramp. There's an internal ramp that will take them up there.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions? Okay. Is there anything that you wanted to say since this is a public hearing?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My name is John Oney with Architectural Alliance, and just briefly, I do have a sample that I can pass around. Basically, this is precast with an internal insulation and concrete on the inside. So this is a sandwich panel. It's sandblasted on the outside to expose the aggregate. So actually, for us, it's a definite upgrade because of the other material. With the weather environment we're in, we would certainly not be as maintenance free as this. So I will pass this around. And we do have ramps to the roof, and those ramps are covered from safety standards, and abuse walls there go 42 inches higher than the actual level of the parking, so impact or something, you know, a car's not going to roll off the side and it's not visible. So I can pass this around real quick if you'd like to see it.
Okay, is there any questions of the applicant? Okay, hearing none, ask for a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved. Second.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, carries. Look forward then, any discussion? None? Okay, ask for a motion.
I'll move the recommended action. Second.
Okay, a motion and a second, any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Carries. Okay, that was easy. Thank you very much. Okay, and second public hearing is item number 2, conditional use permit and variances for telecommunications tower at 1901 66th Street East on the Public Works Building. Staff.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Beal Consulting, on behalf of Verizon Wireless, has applied for a conditional use permit and variances to allow construction of a new telecommunication tower at the Public Works facility. The proposed tower is intended to improve wireless communication in the area. In the C2 zoning district, telecommunication towers are a conditionally permitted use when in conformance with the zoning code. The proposed tower meets the following requirements: co-location, monopole structure type, lighting, advertising, and screening requirements. No existing towers are located within a quarter mile of the proposed site. The code also requires the towers maintain a minimum distance twice the height of the tower from any residential structures. As this tower is on the other side of Highway 77 from the rest of the city, the nearest residential structure is more than 500 feet away from the proposed monopole. Along with the proposed tower, the applicant is proposing an accessory structure to house wireless communications equipment. The structure will be designed to match the existing Public Works building in materials and color. The applicant is requesting 2 variances related to that accessory structure. The first variance is to the number of accessory buildings allowed. The zoning code allows properties in the C2 district to have 1 accessory building, as our Public Works building already has an accessory storage building on site. This will require a variance. The second variance is to the minimum side setback requirement. The street side setback requirement for an accessory building in this zoning district is 25 feet. The applicant is proposing a side setback of 11 feet 10 inches facing Longfellow Avenue. And as far as justification for the variances, strict enforcement of the zoning code would cause a practical difficulty for the applicant. The proposed tower itself meets all requirements and could not be built as planned without an enclosed storage building to house the telecommunications equipment. Locating an antenna tower and an equipment building on this site is a reasonable use of the property. Additionally, the Public Works maintenance facility property is platted in an atypical teardrop shape. Public Works has requested to reserve space adjacent to their existing storage bins for a future expansion, further limiting the space available for the proposed antenna tower and accessory building. The proposed storage building lies in the narrowest point of the site and therefore was not able to meet all setback requirements. None of these unique circumstances were created by the applicant, and therefore staff is recommending approval of both variances. That concludes the staff report. Staff will stand for any questions, and I believe the applicant is here as well if you have any questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any questions of staff? Okay. Applicant, anything you would like to address?
Rob Vieira, Buell Consulting. Just want to say I'll answer the questions you may have for this proposal.
I just have one. Are you finding that is this just to improve, or is there any lack of or dead spots that you're trying to take care of?
It's really meant to kind of fill in the area now. We do have coverage now. We're lacking capacity, so that's why we're trying to fill the site with a capacity site. So it's
Okay.
it's just,
And did you look at any other sites? I'm just curious.
now with these capacity sites, the search rings are so small now. It was basically the airport itself and then this property. That's for my two choices pretty much. So it's very limited.
Yeah, okay. Okay, very good. Other questions? Okay, hearing none, I guess I'd ask for a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved. Second?
Motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Carries. Thank you. Okay, any discussion relative to this after we read it and so on? Okay, nothing? Okay, then I guess I look for a motion to approve.
So moved. Second?
Okay, motion is made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Carries. Thank you. Okay, that was easy for you too. Thanks. Next item on the agenda is consideration of zoning changes, or zoning wording changes. Staff.
Thank you. As you know, city staff continually monitors and notes areas of the code that may require review. The review may be the result of changes in state law or its interpretation, changes in social norms and community desires, new technology, or direct experience with particular regulations. The zoning code is the implementation tool for the city's comprehensive plan, and that's why we do our best to keep it up to date. The attached ordinance primarily addresses minor technical issues and clarifies existing regulations. However, there are a few meatier items here. I'll go through each of them with you just for the record, and then stand for any questions. The first one is fairly simple. Right now, the code refers to a use that is called dance or physical culture studio. This term is not defined in the code. It's always been rather confusing to staff. Physical culture studio seems to be a gym when you do some research, but we have never quite been sure. So instead, we are proposing to use the term health club or studio, spa. That term will be defined now as a facility for profit or nonprofit where members or non-members use equipment or space for the purpose of passive or active exercises related to physical fitness. I'm sure that you all love to read the technical definitions of the zoning code. But, we think this will be more clear. No changes to the districts in which those uses are permitted or prohibited have been made. In terms of impervious surface, the change we're proposing is just to clarify an existing policy. The city has never allowed pervious pavers on single and two-family lots to be deducted from the overall impervious surface limits. The reason for that is that pervious pavers tend to require a lot of maintenance, and maintenance that homeowners we anticipate would not keep up with. Perhaps the first homeowner would, the second maybe not. We've had problems with commercial properties maintaining the pervious pavers, and so we have not had a lot of confidence that this is something that would be maintained in the long term for single or two family properties. You know, this doesn't come up a lot. We have fairly generous regulations for impervious surface, but it's come up once or twice. This has been our policy. We just decided to put it in writing. The lot area, was there a
One quick
question on that
question,
one?
just
Yep.
one quick question on the pervious pavers. So if the essentially pervious pavers would not count, according to what might be advocated in some edge cases, it would not count as impervious surface, right?
Correct. They would not count as pervious surface. They would not count as landscaped area. They would count toward your hard surface maximum.
So the distinction between maintained pervious pavers and poorly maintained pervious pavers, it would seem they would be pervious in either case.
No, in the when they're not maintained, they get clogged, and nothing goes through.
Okay.
Lot areas for planned unit development. The current definition of a lot area includes a provision specifically related to PUDs. That provision states that 1/2 of the area of abutting streets and alleys shall be included in the lot area calculation. That is not stated in the actual PUD section of the code, and to be honest, staff did not know that this existed. So it has not been, we have not calculated PUD area this way for more than 10 years. So we're proposing to, we understand the reason perhaps that it was put in there. PUDs can often include improvements to the right-of-way and streetscape. And so we're proposing to change it to perhaps allow it to count in cases where you are making significant improvements to the streetscape, but not just as of right. And then we're also going to add it to the PUD section, so it's not that you're missing it if you're only reading the regulations and not the list of definitions. 220 volt versus 240 volt. Those two terms are technically interchangeable. However, the correct term is actually 240, and so the code has been updated. We've clarified height measurements for fences. I didn't go into them here, but they are in the ordinance, which is attached. Essentially, we've said that the 6 feet applies to the panel of the fence, and then there's an allowance both for grade changes at the bottom and for the posts at the top. We'll just kind of standardize our measurements, make it easier for the homeowners and for staff. Home occupations, we were proposing to change to allow them in accessory buildings and garages. This is something that we talked to the Planning Commission about in 2009, and we are now getting to. Yay! The objective here is to allow greater opportunity and flexibility for home businesses that won't adversely impact the surrounding neighborhood. So all of the regulations that currently apply, that they have to be conducted within an enclosed building, that certain uses are prohibited, that they shouldn't be noticeable to your neighbors, things like that. Those are all still there. You're just allowed to use an accessory structure for your art studio or whatever it may be. Drive-up service in the mixed-use district. There's some confusing language in here right now. The first sentence of this text states that drive-up service must be part of a multi-tenant mixed-use development. The second sentence then says freestanding buildings shall not have drive-up facilities unless they are designed to meet impacts to the pedestrian environment, adequately address circulation, and potential noise or light pollution. It's staff's belief that the intent of this provision is to prohibit single-user developments with drive-through facilities, as is stated in that first sentence, and then to require the requirements in the second sentence should apply to all drive-through facilities. Some applicants have read the word freestanding as a synonym for standalone. And so they've thought that this second sentence provided an exception to the requirement that they be part of a multi-tenant development. So this is what staff believes was the original intent of this statement, and we're just trying to clarify. Screening for rooftop mechanical equipment. The code currently requires that all mechanical and utilitarian items be fully screened from public areas. that terminology is confusing for staff and for applicants. The proposed change will require screening as follows. From ground level observation or at any point on the property, adjacent property, or from adjacent streets. And there, we were sort of wondering, would you like it to be adjacent streets or adjacent right-of-way, which would potentially include the sidewalk as well? In cases where rooftop equipment may be visible from above, the director will determine if the equipment must be painted to match the roof. We have had some pushback on our screening requirements lately. We've had some builders say that they don't believe this is important and that by requiring screening, we're actually making the building facade look worse. So I'm looking for feedback here. If this is not something that is important to the community anymore, it can certainly be removed. We have added additional language to clarify, you know, kind of what we mean by compatible building materials. We do not want people to put a wood fence on top of their beautiful new building. We'd like you to architecturally incorporate it into your design to begin with. But if it's not thought to be a problem and people don't mind seeing mechanical units on rooftops, then this is certainly something that can be removed. I'll come back to that, let you think about it a little bit. Then I'm just going to quickly go through a couple little reference and inconsistencies that we've corrected and added. There were some section references that were wrong in the non-conforming site improvements section. There was some incorrect symbology in a use table. There was a footnote directing readers to, or we've added a footnote directing readers to applicable conditions for clinics and convenience stores in the mixed-use neighborhood district. We were finding that people would read the table and it would say permitted, but it's permitted so long as these things, and that was being missed. In 2007, the city increased the minimum per unit size for new two-family dwellings. The increase was not reflected in one subdivision. It was shown in another, so we've corrected that. Commercial setbacks from two-family district properties were amended a few years ago to match the setback requirements from single-family properties. It was determined or decided by the community that two-family dwellings were more similar to single-family dwellings than to multifamily, and that those setbacks should be the same. We missed those in a couple of sections, and so we've gone back and made those changes now. Tattoo shops are currently listed as a permitted use in the mixed-use regional and community districts. The use was included in the use table in one section and left out of another. Regulations related to banners were intended to apply to all types of temporary signs in the city. However, that was not clear in the text. Additional language has been added to clarify the term non-residential in the sign ordinance. In the residential sections, there was a table and it said non-residential underneath, which was intended to mean non-residential uses that are permitted in residential districts, such as schools and churches. But we found that a lot of sign contractors were confused by that, so we just added a little extra text. Appendix 1 of the code describes the boundaries of each zoning district. We found an error in the description of one property, so we've corrected that. No change to that property's zoning has been made. The definition of convenience food restaurant and satellite dish antenna have both been removed from the code. Convenience food restaurant is not used anywhere in the code. We call them class 3 fast food restaurants. And satellite dish antenna was included in the definition of dish antenna. We didn't feel we needed both. So those are the changes. If anyone has any questions or would like to make suggestions before going to council with some of these, I'd be happy to.
Okay, Josh, you had one?
I guess I want to express my absolute frustration and dismay that we do not have garage mahal ordinance alleviation here for Gordon. I know how hard he's really wanted that ability, and I thought with this revision we'd finally get that in there and we could really have that fight out here, but apparently that's not happening. So sorry. You want to hold off on the conversation about the screening?
No, go right ahead.
can't imagine there's anyone that really wants to look at those. And as you said, we're not asking them to put a white picket fence on there. We're looking for substantial screening when building a new construction facility. So I guess that would be my inclination. I also would say that right-of-way seems to be more applicable. Most people aren't staring at roof lines as they're sitting at, stoplights, but pedestrians are probably more inclined to be annoyed by that sight line because they're, in the yard or whatever. So I guess that would be my inclination, that I like the screening. I also like right-of-way.
Mr. Chair, just a quick question. Oh,
Yeah.
go ahead. You go ahead first.
Okay,
Let you
well,
go first.
I'm just wondering if staff might be comfortable giving a somewhat recent example of an applicant being adverse to doing screening on a proposed project?
Well, I would prefer not to name applicants. I think that applicants have left this until the last minute and have not incorporated it into their plans, and then end up kind of scrambling at the end. So there's some work that can be done on staff side as well to, although we do put this in our comments for every development review that everything has to be screened, perhaps it needs to be, need to be more forceful about that, make sure that this is architecturally compatible. And so we're going to do that, assuming that that is what the community still wants.
That would be my preference, I think, if it were more explicit up front to applicants that this is something that the city is prioritizing, I think.
Okay.
So the only two things I would look perhaps for some clarification is even the language as written, when it's not visible from any public area, there's no proximity requirement. So a hill a half a block away, if you could see something on the roof of a building, is that enough? And the other piece is where it refers to at any point on an adjacent property. So if a 2-story building goes up next to a 3-story building, it would have to screen, presumably according to this, because it doesn't indicate ground level of the adjacent property. It's at any point on the adjacent property. So thinking of places where this might be an issue, for example, American Legion on, right by Wood Lake Nature Center, and you've got the Gramercy right next door, you're not going to escape a 15-story building and the visibility of rooftop.
Right. I think that the intent in writing it this way, where it says from ground level observation or at any point on the property, we need to clarify it should be from ground level observation from any point on the property or adjacent property to make sure it's ground level. And then to address the case of a shorter building going in next to an already taller building. I think we've put in the condition in there that it's at the director's discretion whether or not they should be painted. The intent is not that they would have to be boxed in. So we will work on that language to make sure that
Okay,
that's
so
clear.
so question for me. Number one, I just want to make sure that the situation we had over on 66th and Lindale with the unit that was on the ground level that had to be screened, that's still in existence, correct? That stipulation?
Yes, this is not just rooftop. This is all mechanical. The times when it comes up most often for us are rooftop mechanical, but it is all mechanical equipment, all HVAC, all utilitarian items. They all have to be screened.
Okay. And I'm kind of not getting the why we still don't leave it as all, to be honest, because from a perspective of what the Met Council tells us we have to do, we have to be more dense. So you're always going to be fighting that issue where you could have taller buildings that you'd still have to shade it from somebody. It's always a possibility, considering the density, situation that we have to continually watch. So why would we just say from ground level? Yeah, I'm not getting that piece.
Well, if a taller building is going up next to a shorter building, we would not retroactively be able to come back and say, this building went in next to now.
My point isn't that, it's if you have new construction and you build a 4-story building, why wouldn't you make sure that they do that at that point, so that if there is a taller building that comes in next to it later on down the road, you're already done?
Oh, so you're saying perhaps make them painted to match regardless of whether or not there's
fence it
someone
in,
around?
or whatever it is.
Okay.
I mean, maybe that's where, that's why I don't quite get this from ground level. Why, I'd be more concerned about higher buildings coming in and being an issue than it would the other situation.
I think part of it depends on who it is, whose interests we're looking out for.
Yeah.
Are we looking out for the interests of relatively few neighbors or the public at large from
Right.
seeing it? So in every other instance, or most other instances, we're talking about the neighbors or passerbys, because it's screen or enclose your dumpsters, screen or enclose your trash. It isn't so much the immediate neighbor next door, it's the general public. So if the standard is automatically applying the harshest remedy or the harshest protection, regardless of who's there, it would seem to me to be, well, but it would seem to me to be a bit more burdensome.
But again, if you look at it from the density standpoint, it's going to be a continuous thing that's going to have to be changed over time. So that's where I'm still not getting it. I mean, maybe we just apply the standard, leave it as it is at all, and not change it.
Well, as it is now where
Or
it
am I
says from,
missing something?
well, as it is now where it says from public areas, it isn't screened from your neighbors. It's screened from places that are public. So it's screened from the right of way, it's screened from adjacent parks. But it wouldn't be screened from the business owner that is right next to you. And so that's something that we felt was missing when we would go out and do inspections from other properties, and we would get a, why do I have to screen it? That person didn't, and look how ugly it is. Yes, it's very ugly. I wish they had to screen it from you, because it is unattractive. And so I think this regulation does tighten it up, in my opinion. It does not address the someone taller might come in, you always have to paint. And that's something that certainly can be added. I don't think that they can be boxed in completely just because of the requirements of the units. But we could require them to be painted to match the roof in all cases.
Well, and all we're trying to do is make it aesthetic so that everyone gets to enjoy a decent view, right? Or whatever, as best as it can be.
Mhm.
So, well, I guess that's where I would be, but. Other comments? Okay, so how do we handle that situation then, as far as this recommendation that you're making?
Well, so someone can make a motion and you'll move to amend it in whichever way you would like, or you can just recommend approval with staff to continue to do a little more research. It's up to you. You can make a formal recommendation with amendments.
Go ahead,
So
Josh.
it looks like the director's got the discretion on the painting element. So it seems to me like we've got the wiggle room there to, in the instance when larger buildings going up, we've got the wiggle room to enforce that element. And again, I mean, I don't know how to better do that without then crossing that threshold of being onerous on the, I guess, shorter building. And it's been alleged that I'm no friend of small business. However, I do think that this going to a fully enclosed structure would probably be a bit overwhelming, especially when you're looking at a taller facility going in next door. My guess is they would have a little more wiggle room in their construction budget, might be willing to, at that point, say, hey, you know what? That would be really ugly for our 14th floor tenant. So how about we pay for the screening here to make this rent, an extra $6 a month higher over, blah, 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 blah. It seems like there's the wiggle room to make that happen. So it would be my inclination to move this as we've amended here with the right-of-way and confirming that the I guess, just right of way. Everything else I think was already there. But
Okay.
that's the direction that I would head.
Okay, I guess I can kind of live with it. I wasn't thinking about the director, and I guess we've had that situation before. So I guess I'll go with it too.
Then I make that motion.
Okay, so just to clarify, we're moving that the entire ordinance be approved, and the amendments will change adjacent streets to adjacent right-of-way, and we will make sure that the ground level observation text is clarified so that it's ground level from all of those properties.
That's my motion.
Okay, there's been a motion. There's a second? Second. Okay, motion and a second. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Carries. Thank you.
Sorry, that was
we
a
actually
public
needed
hearing.
that item was a public hearing. We actually need a motion to close the public
What
hearing.
I
and
said
then a
first was I'm
motion
moving
on the
to
item.
close the public hearing. That's what, it
Oh,
was
that's-
silent though, so it didn't come out.
Yeah, we got too carried away
I
with the
second
conversation.
I second the closure of the public hearing.
Okay.
Yes, okay, it's a
I
motion. and a
then,
second.
sorry, go ahead.
Okay, all in favor say aye.
I,
Any opposed? Carries. Okay, now Josh.
now I make that motion.
Okay.
And I'll second.
Second's been made. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None. Carrie, thank you. Okay, thanks for clarifying that. Okay, moving on to no new business, liaison reports. Tom isn't here for community services, so we've got that one. City Council, Commissioner Rosenberg isn't here. Transportation Commission is...
That's me.
Yep.
Yeah, about all I would report, I did actually miss the first one that would have been mine because it was the week after we got our assignments and I was on a vacation that week. And the second one I also missed because I was at urgent care with a family member. But I would report that I did look at the minutes of their last meeting, and there is a 66th Street project open house on May 1st from 4 to 6:30 at Woodlake Nature Center. So that's going to talk about the 66th Street reconstruction project. So I think people might want to be aware of that. So that's again on May 1st from 4 to 6:30 at Woodlake Nature Center. And of course, that's going to be a big deal in this city when that reconstruction project happens. So I think that's one of the bigger things coming out of transportation. I'm sorry, one more time. May 1st, 4 o'clock to 6:30 p.m., Woodlake Nature Center. So that'll be my report for tonight.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Appreciate it. Josh, HRA?
I have nothing on the HRA.
Let's see, Chamber of Commerce, anything, Gordon?
Yeah, a couple of updates. We had a board member, Mary Everett, who was a representative for Centerpoint, took a job with Excel, so stepped down from the board. The Chamber ambassadors are having lunch all over town, reaching out to new members and prospective members. The Chamber website's generating over 2,000 hits a month within the first 6 weeks of its redesign. And we're attempting some very robust social media campaigns. Please like the Richfield Chamber on Facebook. And there are some other events happening with, for example, May 19th, there's a Bloomington, Edina, and Richfield joint chamber event with the Richfield native curling team member, Jessica Schultz. So that's it.
Very good. Anything from the school board?
They got a little bump in the 2013-14 budget due to some recalculations in state aid, and then they're going to be doing some parking lot seal coating.
Okay, thank you. Josh, do you have one more item?
So after 5 years of being on the Planning Commission, I am sad to report that I am leaving the city of Richfield, and this is my final meeting. It's been a blast, staff and colleagues. So, you will be missed.
Well, and we'll miss you as well, so good luck, and make sure you come back and visit.
I will.
Okay, very good. Okay, anything else?
I move to adjourn.
Okay, move to adjourn.
Second.
Okay, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Thank you very much.
Thanks.